Looks like we are maybe on. Yes. All right. We are on. Cool, cool. All right. So, welcome back to Crystal Fridays. Let me just close down some of my apps here. Close down Spotify, one password. Great. Okay. So, I think we're ready to go. So I'll do my normal hello world that I always do every week. If you're new to Crystal or this stream, Crystal, the programming language, is sort of like a Ruby but compiled and a little bit more performant. I actually think it's a lot more performant. So I say it's Ruby because it has a syntax that's very similar to Ruby. It's actually so similar that I feel like I have learned Ruby coming into Crystal as like a not that good at Ruby person. I feel like I've learned Ruby really well from writing Crystal. So I've actually gone back and read through some gem spec documentation. I've read through like a little bit of Ruby code, and that's just because I was kind of curious. I was just curious, like, what does this stuff look like? What does Ruby look like? I was also curious, obviously, how similar is it? And I like to do that every once in a while because I'm also new to Crystal. I've been coding in Crystal now about a month and a half, sort of in anger or sort of seriously coding in Crystal. So I feel like maybe I'm getting to maybe early intermediate status. So I'm kind of excited about that too. So that is Crystal in a very thin nutshell. And oh, I want to mention one more thing. Crystal is compiled, and it has a lot of concurrency primitives too that actually will soon run on multiple threads. It's not there yet for multiple thread support, but it will soon run on multiple threads. So that's Crystal. This screencast, this live coding stream actually, is me hacking on a real app in Crystal. And also, you're going to see me every week learning Crystal right in front of your eyes and making tons of mistakes and so on. So I enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it as well. So let's get started. Last week, we began working on a server that will serve up documentation for Crystal shards. If you're not familiar, shards are like third-party dependencies. So if I go in, I'll show you what a shard looks like. They're all stored as a list of, I don't care about Kubernetes right now. They're all stored as a list in YAML of the dependencies that I need. So right now I'm using a web framework called Kamal and a database called Newmite. I don't know how to pronounce that. If anyone knows how to pronounce that, throw it in the chat. And by the way, questions or comments, just put them in the chat. And if you have to miss some or all of this, this will be up on YouTube later as well. So, yeah, Kamal Web Framework, CodeStake/Newmite. I love that name, CodeStake. That is a database. So this is kind of like how you specify what you need in your code. These all basically just come from GitHub. So you can actually add more annotations here that like specify the actual place in GitHub this thing should come from. So that is used sometimes, but from what I can tell, it's not used that much. So you read this file with this command called shards. So when you do shards, it's a shortcut for shards install. So you can see like it's going through and fetching not only the top level dependencies in the shards.yaml, but also the transitive dependencies. So transitive is a fancy word for the dependencies of my dependencies, and it goes all the way down also, like the dependencies of my dependencies of my dependencies. And you can keep stringing together the word dependencies, and it basically goes all the way down the dependency graph. I found out about Crystal a while back. I think I found it on Reddit. I want to say Reddit, but it was a long time ago. I got interested in using it mostly because of Go, actually, the Go programming language. So I've been doing a lot of work in Go since I want to say late 2014 or early 2015. And I've been working in Go like as my main career programming language, deploying production code and what have you. So I was looking for sort of a complementary language to Go that was a little bit richer syntax. And again, Ruby syntax is like perfect in terms of adding richness to the language while also keeping it high performance and have the ability to take advantage of modern things like obviously multiple cores, be able to do things like distributed systems and RPCs pretty well. Um, and Crystal just kind of felt like it was a really good middle ground between those really easy to use and high level scripting languages like Ruby and Python and what have you. And on the other side of the coin, like a really powerful, compiled, high performance language that you would find with Go or Rust, or even if you go farther back, like C++, Java, and that kind of stuff. So I hope that makes sense. It's sort of like the middle ground between, super hardcore, low level systems programming and high level, high productivity for web development stuff. Um, so far, I'm kind of exploring that compromise between the two sort of use cases. And so far, I like what I see. So pretty cool stuff to me. And I hope you enjoy it if you haven't written Crystal before. I hope that this kind of prompts you to get into it and check it out. So, by the way, if you don't know where to find Crystal, it's just crystal-lang.org. If you Google Crystal, you'll find a lot of blogs about rocks. I think like that's the best way I can describe it. So Google Crystal Lang, Lang, Lang like language. Just prefix whatever you're trying to find out with Crystal Lang, and you'll get better results. So yeah, Crystal Docs. So we started this last week. The goal of this thing is to basically read through a shard.yaml or get a specific shard name in the URL and fetch that shard, sort of like the shard's CLI tool fetches the shard, and fetch it down, write it down to disk, and then run this command, crystal docs. And when crystal docs runs, it spits out a bunch of HTML and JSON and CSS and JavaScript. I didn't even know it spits out JavaScript, so that's cool. So when it spits this out, then the goal is I want my server, my Crystal Docs server, to actually serve up the HTML and all the stuff the HTML pulls in. So like checking this out, yeah, it pulls in some CSS and some JavaScript, and I guess that's about it. So yeah, I want someone to be able to go to like shards, whatever, localhost, let's just call it localhost slash, and then just taking like Numite as an example, like that, and then taking in a version name as well. Let's just say that. And I want this to either spit out the HTML if it's got it in the database, or go up and fetch it, bring it down to the server, run Crystal Docs, store the HTML and all of those other assets into the database, and then serve it all up. So I just want like a nice web interface to be able to see this stuff. And the reason I got to this point was I found it kind of hard to learn Crystal and figure out how a library works. Like for example, Kamal, the web framework. And that was just because I didn't have access, easy access at least, to the documentation for that library online. And so the docs look like this. If we go into Crystal's standard library API docs, it kind of looks something like this. The auto-generated docs sort of look something like this. So like you can read the Kamal homepage and you get a super nice outline of what this thing does. So this is sort of like a README on a GitHub page, and obviously it does have a README as well here. And this has like some high level examples, and you can actually get pretty far with like this one example. And then if you go over to here and you go to the guide, this has like probably everything you're gonna need. At least everything you're gonna need for a pretty long time until you get something crazy complicated that you need to do. But eventually you either try to do something in here and something goes wrong, at least I did, and then something goes wrong, or you end up with a case where like, yeah, I need to do templates. Take this example. I need to do templates, but like content 4 doesn't quite work for me. I wonder if there's like something else inside of the Kamal library that will do something like content 4, but I can maybe customize to my own needs. And that's where I found myself at first going and actually looking inside of the Kamal source code. So like literally going to the GitHub page, going into the source directory and like looking through this stuff on GitHub. And then I found out like, hey, I don't really understand Crystal enough to be able to like go in here and like follow this call into the right place. So then I had to like clone it down to my machine and open it up in VS Code and then search for stuff. And then I discovered Crystal Docs. So then I had it on my machine already. So I ran Crystal Docs and I got it out into that format. I got the same exact thing, but instead of the docs for my project here, I got docs for the Kamal library. So then I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be cool if you did not have to pull the code down for every library you need and run Crystal Docs? So let's see if I can find it. I asked on the Crystal forum, and you can go to forum.crystallang.org. Let's see, can I just log in here? All right. No. I wonder where I can find this. Anyway, I asked in here, hey, is there anything like this? And if there's not, like, can I help build one? And there was this awesome long discussion with people on the core team, which I thought was really, really nice, and a really good sign that it's like a healthy community. We talked to people on the core team and we came to like a pretty good plan. It was kind of a multifaceted plan. They had some ideas. They had some things that they said they need to do before, we do like a full-fledged docs thing. And then at the same time, they said, hey, you could go ahead and you could build kind of like a prototype. And that's what this thing is. The prototype is basically having this API and having this API behind the scenes go and do what I said. Download the stuff, run Crystal Docs, store it in the database, and then serve it up. So that's what this live coding is. And that's what it will be for the next few, I think, because this thing is going to have to be fairly complex. So let's get back into the code. The structure of Crystal code that I've been using so far, if I just close this here, the structure has been, I put a main.cr file in here at the root. So then I can do things like crystal build main.cr. And I broke stuff. That must have been from last week. But anyway, like you do crystal build main.cr, assuming things are not broken. It builds the thing. It builds a binary. This was built from last time, I think. So it builds a binary called the same thing, Crystal Docs. But main.cr is literally, the last two projects I've worked on, it's literally just been a require. just to bring in the actual code, which is inside of src/crystaldocs.cr. And the reason I do this main is purely for convenience. It's purely so I can do crystal build main.cr instead of typing more and doing that. So like exact same error you'll see here versus here. So I'm not sure if this is like the right pattern. Maybe there's a better way to do builds that follows like the standard folder layout, which by the way does not include main. It does include everything else you see here, but just not main. So maybe it works with the standard folder layout better, but yeah, this is what I've got for now. And it seems to work, so yeah. So yeah, a little bit of overview of the code. You put everything, or I put everything inside of a Crystal Docs module. And this is what that crystal init function does, or the crystal init command does. That command basically bootstraps a skeleton project that's all ready for you to like put your code in. So it literally bootstrapped a file that had module crystal docs, and then a to-do inside of it, similar to this one here on line 6. It had a funny to-do. I think it was like to-do write code or something like that, which I truly enjoyed. Like I thought that was the best literal to-do I could think of. So yeah, it has this module in it, and I filled everything else in. But don't get too impressed because it doesn't work. So that's what we're going to do today. So this is the database that we're going to store all of those documentation assets in. And oh yeah, Crystal Init filled this in for us too. I don't really know what to do with this yet, but later. We'll cross that bridge later. So I also have this route. So this is that get request in, where was I? Yeah, it was this get request over here. So it was like get and then slash the shard organization, which in this case would be Numite, which would be CodeStake. And I called it organization because that's sort of similar to like a GitHub organization. So like, let's go see this on GitHub. So it's here. So like in GitHub parlance, this is the organization, CodeStake, and Numite is the repository. So what I called it over here is shard organization and shard name, because repository kind of doesn't really fit for shards. It's like a shard is an artifact, not really a repository. And I really wanted to separate out the concept of code repository, where the code like changes and it's meant to be collaborated on and everything. And on the other side, the artifact, which is ideally this thing that never changes, so that anyone who depends on it can make sure that they can actually depend on it long term to like not change and stay stable and so on. So yeah, I called it shard name. That's kind of the idea behind it. So what we do inside of this get is we grab the shard organization and the shard name out of the path parameters. And we do this question mark thing to maybe get it if it's there or not. And that's why we end up with this union type. So both of these org and name are either string or nil. I say this every week. I really love that Crystal actually forces you to check if it's nil or not. So shard org, you could not use it as a string. You couldn't put it inside of a hash map as a key or anything like that. Because hash maps require strings, but we're not passing a string. We would be passing a string or a nil. So Crystal forces you to check here and here. But if you get past these if and else if, and you end up inside the else, then the Crystal compiler will guarantee that DB key, well, I haven't used it yet, but that like shard org and shard name are actually strings. Oh yeah, so I used them here. So it's going to guarantee that those are strings, which is really nice. So these are the failure cases. Going into the happy path, we make up the database key, And for now, we're basically just making it up as the index.html. We'll need to build out other routes for the other assets that index.html might pull in. But basically, we're going to just serve up the index.html. We're going to serve it up out of the database. So again, we're getting the index.html out of the database, and the key for the database is this. So the question mark again, the question mark strikes again. It's a maybe. So it maybe is in the database, maybe not. So then we have to check, is it nil? Well, what are we going to do if it's nil? This is where the complicated stuff is. This is where we've got to do a git clone. We've got to figure out where to git clone it from. And this is where we make up that VCS URL or the GitHub URL. So there you go. Shard org, and the GitHub repository name is the same as the shard name. So we're trying to do a git clone, pass in the shard URL, the GitHub URL, and then we want to check it out. We want to clone it into this folder, shard.org/shard name. We'll get to this to do. Then we're going to wait for that clone to finish. If it doesn't finish, we're doing this thing called halt. That's a Kamal thing. Halting basically says bail out, immediately return this to the client. So a 500, which is internal server error if the git clone failed. Figure that's the best thing for now. If the git clone failed, we're just going to say internal error. Okay, so then once the code is down, then we're going to actually run crystal docs on the thing. So that means that we're going to make sure we run crystal docs inside of that directory that we cloned to. So we cloned it on line 33. We are going into that same directory before we run crystal docs. Okay, so we do that. We wait for the docs to complete. We wait for it to spit out all of those assets. And those assets will go into the docs folder, docs directory, underneath this directory. Okay, so we've got some to-dos in here. How do we get the rest of the crystal docs files into the database? Don't know yet. We're not going to deal with that just yet. How do we fetch and render the docs? Well, check mark on that one. We did the git clone. All of the build's broken, but we'll get there. CD into the new source directory. That is this right here. So check mark on that. Run crystal docs. We did that here. And oh, here, I'm going to do a little sidetrack here. Here is the forum. All right, so I asked about it here on April 3rd. We talked and talked and talked, kind of intense talking and back and forth till April 14th. And a few folks from the core team basically said what I talked about. Hey, maybe you can go and build crystal docs. So that's where we are. So then we've got run crystal docs. Oops, we've got our old question mark and then profit. We're going to take over the world. So we're going to try to figure out what's up with the question mark. Okay. So we ran crystal docs. We changed directories into there. Now we need to somehow go into the this directory. So docs dir equals that /docs. Okay, so go into this directory, then copy the index.html out and put it into the database. And that would be under the key that we made already, under this key. Double quotes, don't need that. All right, so build's broken, but I want to keep hacking. So this is hacking. We don't have to fix the build before we continue. To hell with CI. So let's go into the Docster and let's go into those Crystal API documentation that we saw before and figure out how do we copy a file. So here, where was I? here. So I think it's like under file. Yeah, file represents a file entry in the local file system, lets you use it as an IO. So IO stands for input output. It's kind of a pretty common construct in most languages. It may not be surfaced as an IO in some languages. But anyway, the basic idea is it's a general form of data coming in or out, hence the name IO. So in IO world, IO is a base, sorry, in Crystal world, IO is a base class. They call it an abstract class. So if you're familiar with Java or C++ or C Sharp or a bunch of other languages, abstract class, if you don't know, is a class that doesn't work on its own. You have to extend it. And then when you extend it, you get access to all of the IO's functionality. Plus, you have to implement the abstract functions, the abstract methods that the IO requires. So file is one of those one of those classes that does implement IO. It extends it and implements it. And really all we need is this code sample right here, because get s to end stands for get string to the end of the file. And really that's what we want. We want to get the entire index.html string, and then once we get it into a string, boom, now we can put it into the database. So honestly, this is a little easier than I thought it would be, so definitely happy about that. And that's actually been kind of a theme, honestly, with Crystal. And this is not me like selling it. This is actually like from experience, like from data and my own experience. Whenever I'm like, oh, I need to go do a file read, or I need to set up a new HTTP route or something, I go in and honestly, like, for me, because I'm new, the hardest thing is finding out where to go in the docs. But once I get there, I basically am just like, okay, 3 lines, copy, paste, and done. So I really love that. And that goes to speak for the high level nature of Crystal. So coming back into here, we want to open up a file for the docs directory /index.html. So I want to go to docs dir /index.html. And there's going to be a to-do here. Read all the other asset files into the database in addition to index.html. So we're keeping it simple, but this is good enough for now. So we are going to read out the index.html content, and then we're going to put it in the database. So we are going to do db bracket db key, and we're going to set that equal to the index.html content. So we're going to need to fix the build, but I am sort of confident that we're at the profit step. So let's all like collectively cross our fingers. If you're on the stream, cross your fingers. If you're watching on YouTube later on, still cross your fingers. And let's fix the build, and then let's see. Let's see if we can make this work. And by the way, if you're wondering, Crystal does have a good unit testing framework built in. It's called Specs. Go back to some of the previous YouTube videos and see. There's one where I write specs. And I'll put a link at the end to where you can find the YouTubes. So Crystal build, we got that failure. No overload match, process new with types string, string, string. I think I messed that up, and I think I know the way to fix it. So you can see I'm getting a little better at figuring out where to go in the API docs. So we've got process new, and we pass in a command, and then arguments equals nil. So let me see if there is an example. I think I saw one before. Maybe it's in the reference. Maybe. Command, yeah. User input. Yeah, okay. So process takes in a list of arguments, not just a bunch of strings. So I wonder what the deal is here. I wish it showed the type of args, but that's for another day. That is a battle I'll fight another day. So process.new, and then we need to do a list with the shard VCS URL and the directory to check it out into. And let's see now. I might have to fix, array concat with type string. Where do I do that? That's on line, process.cr. Uh-oh. All right, so this is another learning that I did a while ago. For some reason, and I'm not sure why, when Crystal spits out an error, it only spits out the deepest stack trace, frame in the stack trace. So that's this. And you can see here, like, I don't own this code, process.cr. That's in the Crystal standard library. You can see that by this path right here. So since I don't own it, I can't fix it, but I bet there's some code that I'm calling that is messing it up. And to figure out what that is, we pass --error-trace, and it prints out the entire thing, the entire stack trace. So main.cr, duh, this is a one-line file. Now we go into Crystal Docs line 39. Is that the one I just changed? Nope. All right, so Crystal Docs, and it looks like I am passing in a string and a string. Yeah, so obviously I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to pass in a string and a list. So I think I need to do this. And chdir is in there as well, I think. Chdir, yes. And I think I am not supposed to do this. I'm pretty sure it's the colon. I can never remember because sometimes I do Python where it's a equal sign. Sometimes I do Crystal where it's a colon. Sometimes I do Go and that's totally different there. So let's see. Empty. Oh, I have to do this to specify the type. So Crystal, the explanation of this, Crystal tries to guess all of your types. And that is an awesome feature actually because it keeps your code short and a little bit easier to write and read. So like if I were to do this, let's see, like docs args equals that, same deal, it would fail. But then like if I want to be even more verbose, I would have to do this. So this is saying docs args is an array of strings and then that equals an empty array. So that's long. Instead, what I could do is that. That's saying the exact same thing, but it's even shorter. And then I can delete that and I can do this, which is even shorter. But what would be even better than that is actually, let me go up here. I can show this, this type inference. What's even better is if I did this. So now, if I do that, Crystal already knows at compile time, Crystal already knows that clone args is an array of strings. I'm just gonna make this a little bit easier to read for those who don't like long lines, lots of columns, which I don't. So it already knows clone args is an array of strings, I think. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So that worked. Now let's see, Crystal docs. Uh-oh, what did I do? Let's do a Crystal run. There we go. All right, so we've got line, we've got port 3000. And then we are going to do a curl. Let's do a curl and get the docs for Kamal. So we're going to follow the pattern here. So localhost 3000. Now we got to look up what that route is again, because I know it's pretty long. So slash the organization and then slash the name. So let me remind myself. The org is CodeStake. Nope. What is the org? Kemal CR. And then the name is Kemal. We're going to see what happens. It broke. Or did it? What is this? No, I think it might have broken. That's a lot of output though. Let me clear the screen. Go all the way up to the top. What's going on here? You know what? I think what would be better, what I should have thought of before, is let's go to this in the browser. Yeah, all right, exception. No such file or directory. I think the reason is that. Yeah. Pretty sure the reason is that. Oh, I could have looked at the stack trace here. Duh. All right, so that kind of makes sense because we didn't make the directory already. So, okay, duh. So let's figure out how to make the directory. I think there might be a package in here called directory. Directory file type. This right here is inside of the file package. That checks if it exists. Oh, here we go. Make dir p. I like that one better. So it's just like the Unix one. Make dir p makes the leaf directory, the lowest directory, and it also makes any of the ones from that point up to where you are. Oh yeah, look, there's a dir. So there's a dir package in here. So I'm gonna go and do require dir so I can grab that. And now let's make up a, where are we here? We are trying to check it out into shard.org/shard name. So we're going to do a clone dir equals this so we can reuse it. And then we're going to do a dir.makedirp. And by the way, this self dot means that it is a class method. In other languages, that would be like a static method. Like I know C++ would be that. I think Java and C#, it's called the same thing. So it means that you don't create an instance of this dir class. Where is it? You don't create an instance of this. It just lives under the dir namespace. Actually, it lives under the dir class. So there you go. So we're cloning the directory, and that returns nil. So let's see. The mode is 511, but that's weird because it's saying the permissions default to 777. I'm going to leave it for now. We'll see what happens. So dir make dir p, that makes up the clone dir. We should do this. Reuse it. And then we go in here. We do our clone itself. Blah, blah, blah. We do our crystal docs. We are inside of the clone dir, I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to need to be inside the clone directory when we run crystal docs. And going down here, the docs dir is actually the clone directory. And it's the docs directory underneath the clone directory. Cool. So then we go to the index.html, which is under the docs directory. Yeah, we read it. We haven't spit it out yet. So let's just see if we can run the thing. We'll expect the same error, but let's see if we can run it without hitting any errors. Crystal run 3000. No such file or directory again? Git clone Kamal CR / Kamal. All right, so is there stack trace? Crystal docs line 37. Git clone and the clone args. So let's see here. We're going to go here after the makedir p. We're going to make sure it exists. Actually, we can check in VS Code, I think. There it is, Kamal CR / Kamal. Okay, so that exists. I wonder if there's an issue with the git clone. So you know what? Let's do this. There's a shorthand where you can just do this and it'll just run git, I think. So we're going to try that out. And we'll expect line 38 to fail if there's a problem with git. And if it doesn't fail, then we'll go to here, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a problem with the clone directory, this. So we'll see. We'll see what we get. All right. Yeah, it looks like it's there. Let me just double check here. Yeah, it's the backticks. One more thing, actually. You can do that, and you can print out, I think, yeah, you can print out the success or failure. So $ question holds the exit status. All right. Process status, no such file or directory. Wait a second. Git, let's see, the raw git results is going to be that. Maybe I did that exec wrong. Let's see. Debugging without specs, isn't it fun? Raw get result, process status. Interesting. So let's do what they do inside of here, where they do .success question mark. Yeah. Okay, let's see how that goes. Raw get result false. It is a false. Interesting. So that means there's probably something wrong with Git. We might have to specify the executable path for process. Maybe. Oh, this is the process status. Oh, well, we can see the exit code too, but pretty sure there's a problem with Git, so this is a good start. So new env equals nil. Okay. So env, I'm guessing env is another list. Okay. View source. Args equals nil. Prepare args. Shell. Interesting. The fact that there is no shell might mean that there's no environment, but let's just try setting the environment to have an executable path that points to Git. Just Git for now, and we'll figure out how to get the executable path that points to Crystal next. So, okay, executable path for user bin, and yeah, we'll actually, you know what? Let's put both. Oops. So we're gonna do here. User bin, and you know what? Just for the heck of it, that one too. So let's see here. How do we pass it in again? We do env. So path equals this thing, exec path, and we need to do a join on that to be commas, I think. Can't even remember what paths look like. Oh, colons. So I think we do this. But let me just double check. I'm going to go look up the docs for strings. It's always called something different, you know? Join. No. Build from UTF new. Okay. There's got to be a way to join strings. Join. Oh, maybe it's in arrays. Dupe each byte, each line. There's a lot in here, which is cool. Just not when you're looking for something, right? Let's see if we can look inside of arrays instead. Oh, split is the opposite of what we want. Sub, no. All right, let's check out array. Returns a new array by joining self with other. That's not what we want. Huh. I bet it's in here somewhere. I'm on the verge of implementing it by myself. You know what? Actually, what we're just going to do is this. So we'll just do the concatenation ourselves for now in the interest of time. Let's get rid of that because we're pretty sure we know what the problem is. Not 100, but let's roll with it. Okay. No overload matches. We got to do the colon. I always do that. Do some spaces. Types string, args, and env. Interesting. I wonder what the... Maybe env is a list. Where was I? Process. Okay, run, instance method, environment, process env is a hash. Okay, it's a hash. Good to know. So let's do this. So we'll do that. Let's call it exec env because we're going to use it below, and that's sort of a nice generic name. And I think that is it. We're setting our path equal to that thing concatenated. This will be extensible, which is nice. We can add other environment variables if we want. And let's see. Nope. Oh, named tuple. We need a hash map. Let me refresh how we do hash maps. Maybe it's under hash. Hash literals. Oh, we need the, this is hash rocket. I learned that here, but I didn't know the name. And then I went to Ruby and found out it's called hash rocket. So funny story. So it's literally the difference between this is a tuple and this is a hash rocket. So my read, I guess sort of my best explanation for how tuples and hashes differ is, well, there's two kinds of tuples, first of all. There are unnamed tuples and named tuples in Crystal. So unnamed tuples are basically lists of a fixed size, and you can never change the size. So I'm pretty sure you can change the values. If it's like a tuple of two elements, I'm pretty sure you can change the values on the first and the second element, but you can never add a third or take away one of the elements. Then there are named tuples, which is the same idea on size. It's like you can have two key value pairs, and named tuples are key value pairs, but you can never add or remove any key value pairs. But I'm pretty sure that you can change one or both of the key value pairs, either the key or the value. Actually, I think it's just the value, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. So anyway, this makes a name tuple. This is like shorthand for making name tuple. And you can obviously go and create an instance of name tuple and do all that good stuff. But this is like the Crystal compiler provided shorthand, which is nice. I'm pretty sure this is the Crystal compiled shorthand, the compiler shorthand for hash maps. And I'm just basing that off of this. It's called a hash literal. Let's see though. The proof is in the pudding. There we go. So let's see what we got now. I don't want to translate that. I wonder why it thinks that. Not now. It thinks it's Catalan. That's interesting. So now we're on line 41. Same problem though. I wonder what's going on. Let's see if there's anything online. Crystal lang execute command. How to execute a shell script in Crystal while capturing output. Without shell equals true, the default behavior of process.run is to use the command as the executable to run. The string needs to be a program name without any arguments. Okay, that's kind of what we're doing. Command is sh. Args is that. Oh, I think we have to specify a shell in which to run git. Or we can just make the shell equals true. So let's see if we can do that. Make the shell equals true. We'll see. All right, progress. Can't specify arguments in both command and args without including the $@ in the command. So what's up with that? We can't specify the command, but they did that here. Command and args. So shard VCS is a string, clone dir is a string, and maybe there's some more here. Let's do what all programmers do best and Google this. Ruby, Java, Python. All right, Crystal is obviously, oh, is it there? No. Yeah, Crystal is obviously a young language, so I wasn't super hopeful on that one, but at least we tried, right? So let's see. Can't specify arguments in both command and args without including, oh, that's because of this. We have to literally just do the executable. And we put clone inside of the argument, I think. So again, proof is in the pudding. Let's see. Shard VCS URL. It's because we've got the comma. I always do that. I wonder if anyone else is like me. I'm like, I know the solution, and then I put it in, but I leave out like one piece of syntax because I'm so excited. And then I go in, I'm like, let's see if it worked. And then I'm like, oh, did I leave it in? This happens. I'm like, let's see if it worked. And then I'm like, oh, it didn't work. but I quickly realized that it's like a syntax error that I just left out. So now let's see if it worked. Okay, it compiles, that's a start. All right, okay, so we made progress past the get, and we know now what we have to do. So we have to put the docs in here. And we also need to do shell true. All right, we're making progress. 5 minutes to go, we're making some progress. So let's see. Couldn't clone. Where is that error? That is up here. All right, so we need to print out the error message. Did we print it out here? No. Print the process. I think process has an error message in it. I'm gonna close some of these down. Process dot, what did we do? Process dot wait, and that returns a process status. Clicking through there, execode, exasignal, exastatus, success. I thought that there was some output. Maybe it's back inside of here. Pipe to this process is output. That's what we have to do. So output equals clone process dot output maybe, and that returns a maybe file descriptor. So let's see, if output, if not output nil, so that would mean that output exists. Then we're going to figure out how to print out everything in the file descriptor. I think we can do get s to end again, maybe. Yeah, get s to end. That's inherited from IO. So let's see. Output, we're going to print output.get gets to end. Output equals that. What did I do? That. Okay. So I suppose we could have written specs to make this faster, but this is more fun. Okay, so wait a second. It didn't print any output, did it? All right, and I think I saw the reason for that. I think I saw inside of here, where was it? Output, a pipe to this process output raises if a pipe wasn't asked when creating the process. Well, it doesn't look like it raises because, well, my guess is it doesn't raise is because of this. It's a maybe. So it probably returns nil, and this might just be outdated. But let's figure out how to ask for a pipe when we create the process. Oh, I see. I bet this is the one that raises, and this is the one that returns the nil. So maybe I'll go in and fix that. So let's see. How do we ask for output? Output is a standard IO equals redirect close. So we got to figure out how to create a standard IO now. It is either an IO or a process redirect. So down the rabbit hole. So I'm going to put it to do in here. We're going to do actually up here. Figure out how to specify an output. so that we can so that we can do what? So we can get the output. How to figure out specifying output IO so we can get the outputs later if the command fails. So, two things. One, I suspect we're coming up on writing a helper function because I see us doing the same pattern for each process.new. And the other thing is, next week I think we're probably going to write some specs because you can see my trial and error every time, back and forth. It's pretty inefficient. So yeah, let's go write some specs next week. So that's the time I have for today. I hope you learned something today about Crystal. I learned a lot. Hope you learned something either about Crystal actually, or that it's okay to fail and flail around, which I did a lot too. So totally okay to do. I'm happy to keep doing it on video as well. So if you're embarrassed to admit that you do it, just come and watch me do it instead. So next week I will be here, same time, same place, 10 a.m. US Pacific time, twitch.tv/ARSchless. This is going to be on YouTube like all the other videos. If you want to see those, go to arschless.com/about. Scroll down to Crystal Fridays and there's a link to YouTube there. All right. So that's it for me. Go check out twitch.tv/eric.dev. I think he is streaming right now. Oh, he's going to stream soon, I believe. I think he's going to stream maybe in the next 15 minutes. And he does a lot of Minecraft stuff. I think right now he's programming. Oh, yeah, here we go. Programming a Minecraft add-on. He's on. He just did the 3rd edition of that. And I think he's going to do the 4th edition of that. And I just got some great ideas on how to fill out my Twitch homepage too. So yeah, go check that out. This is my coworker. He's crazy smart, really interesting person. I think you would really, really enjoy this stream if you're into gaming or Minecraft or stuff like that. All right, so that's it for me. I'll have this code up at GitHub ARSchless Crystal Docs. So definitely go check that out. And I will see all of you next week. Same time, same place on Twitch. Bye, everybody.